Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. Last week I did an early morning glow painting. I want to do another one this week as well. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. As always, I'll provide the drawing template and reference. Check my description to download it so that you guys can follow with me in this tutorial. You can see in the reference, even though I took this picture early in the morning around 8 a.m. and overcast lighting, but I want to change the mood and create a story that it's early morning painting. Because I did an early morning glow painting, and you can check my video at the top, and I want to capture that essence from that, and I want to apply the principles here. As a painter, you're also telling a story, and it's your story, so you can change your heroes, villains, and your characters and however you want it. And I also do this with my drawing as well, and I change it drastically whatever in my reference and other than that. And you can see there is also a car which is in a mid-ground. It doesn't exist in my reference. And you can see in the shapes on the building on the left hand side, I also changed a bit, and I also removed the trees as well. So now I start with a light wash first. So I'm going to start with my blue wash at the top. So if you see early in the morning, there always a gradient happens from blue to a warmer tone. So I use Cobalt Blue at the top. At the bottom, I'm using a little bit of yellow ochre in the mid-ground. And as it comes to the bottom, I'm using Winsor Yellow. Since I have a lot of, I bought a tube of Winsor Yellow, so I want to make sure to use it. And you can also use Cadmium Yellow or Yellow Ochre for it. But Cadmium Yellow would work really better because it provides a glow in our distance as well as in the ground. And you can see in the foreground, I also increase the pigment consistency using burnt sienna because I want to create a lead-in. So now I'm focusing on the first wash on the building. This is just to put a wash to see where everything goes. And you can see the color doesn't matter. I'm just picking up the water left over in my palette, like dirt in my palette, and I'm just applying it here and there just to see where everything sits. I also sit my watercolor paper dry for a bit, and you can see even though the wash looks severe when we put the paint, now it becomes lighter. So you have to go a little bit overcompensate your paint in the first wash so that it gets lighter. So in an early morning scene, if you look for references in Google, or if you go and take a look when early in the morning, so the glow usually happens in distance, and you can also see it creates this warmer tone and creates everything as a shape, and it doesn't show a lot of details. So I want to make sure that I want to capture that essence as well. For the warmer tone, what I'm using yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna, and you can also use raw amber as well because I want to get a warmer tone in my distance. So now I'm focusing on the second wash on the building. When you think about the second wash, think about shadows, the shadow side of the building. And when you do this, make sure to think everything as a shape and do strokes which are like big and bold. And it also shows confidence in your painting too. And I'm focusing on the shadow side of the foreground building, and you can see in the reference there's a lot of things happening. So I'm just putting the shadow side with a little bit of coolness in it, but I'll warm it up at the end and we'll add the details at the end. So you can see when I was doing the stroke really fast, and I paint over that balcony which is on the lighting side. So whenever you want to correct something, just take a tissue paper and just take off the paint and just paint over it, and don't dab it, don't try to do anything else. Sometimes when you make a mistake, leave it as it is, don't try to correct it, and it also shows confidence in your painting as well. So now I jumped on to the distance bus, and I also added two bus, so it kind of like shows that there's a little bit of depth and distance. And you can see it also looks red in our reference since it's an early morning scene, and it's also on the shadow side, so it's going to be darker. So I'm warming up the wash more at the bottom of my distance because I want to create the glow. For that, I'm using some kind of red in it, and I just glazed over it and used tissue paper for it. So I went and painted the cars, and there is nothing to talk about painting cars. It just have to look like a car when you paint it, and if you get the shapes right and the lighting right on the cars, it will look like that. So the foreground building at the bottom, even though in an overcast day it looks darker, and think about in a sunny day, an early morning light, there's no lights happening. So I'm going to get that shape underneath that sign and as dark as possible. And you can also see I'm also glazing over it. I'm also adding a little bit of darker pigment on top of it, because this is like my third wash, and I'm also making sure to make this stroke really fast as possible. I just wanted to make sure that there's a little bit of windows, and you can also see the reflection on the balconies went a little bit light, so I just want to increase the pigment consistency on it. So now let's add the figures. For the figures, and I'm starting with my major figure. The major figure is the figure which is in the front, and I'll put a lot of details on that figure. And she's also holding a coffee, and it also creates a little bit of like an eyelet on her coffee, and I'll just leave it as it is, just to create a little bit of contrast in my major figure. So when I did this painting, at this point I thought that my painting didn't work. I thought it didn't work. I thought of giving up, but I kept going. As soon as I add the shadows in my painting, and everything came alive, and you will see it in a second. And I also want that background distance building go a little bit further, so I'm using a glazing over with the yellow ochre wash, and you can see as soon as we did that, and the distance building went outside. So this is the shadow I was talking about. You can see as soon as we add the shadow, the whole painting came alive, and everything came in place. And whenever you do a painting, whenever you think that you're losing it, and keep painting it till the end, and you will see the results. And the strokes what I made on the shadows, I also made up a lot of strokes, and it also creates a little bit of contrast in our foreground as well. So this is my tertiary details. The tertiary details I'll do at the end, and these are the street poles, street lights, and whatever you name it. I'm also making sure to keep it really weak. I don't give a lot of details on the street poles and the signals, because I don't want this the whole light in our scene to take away from these eyelets. You can see I'm also adding the details on the left hand side. Since there's a little bit of wetness, I'm just using tissue paper to get rid of it. So this is the last step. I wait this for the end, and some people didn't like adding eyelets on top of the watercolor painting, but I do, because sometimes it's really hard to plan everything out and leaving some eyelets. But this also helps to bring back some of the eyelets back in our painting as well. So when you do this eyelet part, or putting down eyelets, squint your eyes and it will show. And even though we made up the scene and we made up this mood, I'm going to create my own eyelets as well. But you can also do is you can look for some references in Google or Pinterest, and those are like beautiful places to look for references, and you can also copy that mood into your scene. In my recent years of painting, I drastically changed the mood as well as my painting, or apart from my references, and I'll come up with a lot of details by myself, because there's one thing that happened in my recent year as well. Whenever I applied for a juried exhibition or any kind of competition, I lose marks on originality, and because if you paint as it is what's in your reference, there is no originality to it. So that's why I started creating my own mood and changing my references and coming up with my own painting as well. So being said that, and you could see, and I usually have this tape on my watercolor paper, and it also shows what my paint is going to look like at the end. So now it's your turn. Take my drawing template and reference, and check this video, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this how to paint morning light in watercolors with me. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section. If you want me to cover any of the subjects in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And please just share with your friends and family, and good luck to painting, folks.